Welcome to the Matt and Dale podcast, episode 8.
Hey, Matt.
Hello, viewers.
I was going to say hi, Matt. We've been speaking for 5 minutes before we actually
Yeah,
said hi,
it's very fake.
truth be
So
told.
yeah.
But yeah, good to chat. We had a little prelim catch up about maybe the topic for today, right? And I
That's
think
right.
what we'd both experienced, or I certainly have experienced what we talked about, which I think was around maybe how we deal with stress. Um,
Yeah,
and what do we turn to? How do we process it? How do we move through it? How do we be with it? All of the above, right?
yeah. And how we feel towards it, maybe
H-
as well.
How do we feel towards it? Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
Good one. Where do you want to start?
Well, yeah, we are having a brief chat, and I was talking about uh, when I was going through my own journey and all the changes I was
Mm,
making. I was doing a lot of meditating, a lot of deep breathing, a lot
mm-hmm,
of like zenning, I would like to call it.
mm-hmm,
And then for some reason, when I started to feel anger or worry or stress and all these really normal human experiences,
yeah,
I had some sort of a judgment within me, like I wasn't allowed to feel that because now I was zenning and meditating and breathing and I was healing. I almost had this judgment part that didn't allow me to feel that. So
mm-hmm,
when anger and stress and worry did present itself, I tried to meditate it away or use deep breathing to get rid of it because
mm-hmm,
I thought, oh, I need to clean myself here. This is like, toxic, negative energy.
yeah,
And what ended up happening was I ended up bottling it up. I didn't realize, but the more that I was trying to meditate it away, I was just keeping it in more.
mm-hmm,
So over that couple of years, what I learned was anger and stress and worry. It's really important for me
mm,
to express it in an energetic way, whether that's through, let's say, movement, like going to the gym. And I was also saying playing golf again and going to the driving range, like belting drivers, is like a really good
smashing it out of your
release.
system.
Yeah, yeah. And but there was a time when I was, going through that healing where I thought, nah, like, if I feel anger and I'm
Mm,
trying to get it out of the gym, it means that I'm resisting it or something. But what I worked out was it's completely healthy to to work through it and to move the body in a way that feels like it's almost processing in a more beneficial way.
yeah, I think I hear what you're saying. I think I'm always like work in progress around all this stuff. Like I'm, and to answer your question, well, I think just to kind of, talk about what you've been talking about. For me, it's um, like I just recently had a stressful situation, right? And for me, it was needing, I think initially it was like, I think my wife was copped not the brunt, but I had to download what was going on. So no, I mean, I clearly just, went through what I was going through and I was a bit heated and all that sort of stuff and kind of was in a bit of a huff about it all. But that's the initial phase of me just needing to kind of get it out and just talk through it with someone. They don't need to do anything with it, just kind of, I guess, just support me and acknowledge what I'm saying, really. Um, and my wife was actually really good in terms of being with me with that situation. And I got a bit worried about it as well. I was worried about it and what to do about it. So I was trying to almost like solve the problem, but still at the same time going through this stress.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't allow myself to have it or judge myself for having it. It's more, I don't really like feeling it because, you said, how do you feel about? Well, I don't really like feeling stressful, to be honest. It's not one of my
Yeah,
most pleasant of sensations. So,
yeah,
but for me, it was, I think, more just talking through the issue more than the feeling and
yeah,
getting that resolved. And it was I mean, I won't go into detail, but I think what came up for me, and I was just sort of looking at, and generally a sleep will help me a lot just to kind of rebalance, and particularly if it's at the end of the day, which it typically is when if I do get stressed. And in the morning, I don't know, I just did my usual routine, some exercise, yoga, had a walk, and um, I always go back, and this isn't a cop out, but if there is something worrying me, it's like I just say, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know, really, like, what is it? And for me, that situation, it was that I made a mistake, right? And I do have and I also said, well, it's okay to be imperfect. Now that you've made the mistake, what are you going to do about it? Like, how are you going to keep your integrity? And that's what came up for me. And that was really nourishing when I did that. It was like, right, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to say that to that person, and I need to do whatever I need to do to come back into integrity for myself. Okay. And that was the most empowering chat that I had with myself, rather than kind of scolding myself, which I can
Yeah,
do, and saying, hey, I can't believe you made that mistake. Oh, that kind of feeling.
yeah. It sounds
And
very like values based.
huge. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it just brings me back into power rather
yeah,
than being, I don't know what to do, and feeling
mm,
out of control, into, hang on, well, even if you don't know what to do, how are you going to systematically find out what to do? How are you going to manage it? How are you going to manage your relationships? What do you need to do to get to a place where you're back in control? Um, Mistake or no mistake,
yeah,
doesn't matter. Like, as long as you talk it through. And do you know what I mean? It was just sort of, how do I kind of process it, get back into control, but ensure that my integrity is intact, which was the most critical thing, rather than, again, I won't go through scenarios of what I was going to do or thinking at the time, but rather than just running away, or just
yeah,
hiding my head in the sand, or whatever it may
yeah.
be, how can I face it, learn from it, grow from it, and move through it?
So, do you like when you are going through, say, days of frustration, anger, and worry, do you still keep up your morning routine? Or does that
Yeah.
sort of, okay, yeah,
Like sometimes I'm probably more better at it than at other days, for sure.
yeah. What
Um,
what makes you like when you say better at it,
hmm.
what do you mean by that?
Then I'm judging myself for my routine, I know, but um, I'm just like probably just more. That would be to say one state's better than another, though, wouldn't it? I would suggest just I'd be a little bit more focused, less in my head,
Yeah.
um, less in the busy mind and the worry and all that sort of thing. So
Mm,
a little bit more in the solution rather than in the problem,
yeah, I get
if
you.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
But sometimes you got to go through one to get to the other anyway. So
yeah, yeah. And
sometimes,
really love what you were saying. Yeah, so like when you're feeling angry, Jen kind of gives you a space just to be that.
well, yeah, I mean, I've got to say she's got a lot better at it through
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
I think that's just familiarity,
yeah,
not trying to solve things, not being worried if I am feeling a little bit off kilter,
yeah,
which, again, without going through what her work's been, some of her work's been that, like, to be able to be with energy, that probably particularly male energy, that isn't like feeling fearful or agitated or frustrated, or you know what I mean? Like, to be with that and just to be okay with that. And
yeah,
that really helps me. And she's practiced doing that, I can tell, probably just through her own work. And as a result, it allows me to arrive or be in any state that I am, rather than, you know, her not being happy with it.
yeah. It's hard though, isn't it? Because naturally we don't want to see the people around us hurting. And I know that I've fallen into
Yeah.
this fixer Like,
No,
oh,
same. Yeah.
I don't want to see you hurting. Like, here's a solution to get
Yeah.
rid of that pain. But so I don't know, I feel like that part of us is really justified, but it's not helpful.
Um, so sorry, what's not helpful? The trying to fix things.
Yeah, like it makes sense, but I feel like it's not helpful at the time.
Oh God, no,
So
because then it's saying there's something wrong with the way that you are,
yeah,
and that's the last thing you want to hear. And this would apply to client work clearly as well. Um,
mm,
Client work in some ways is easier because you have that perhaps more neutrality
yeah,
than you would with your wife or primary partner. Um, but yeah, if you're trying to fix things, basically you're saying to the other person who's maybe having some challenges emotionally that they're not okay being how they are right now, which is the actual opposite of the way to move, how to move through it, which is
yeah,
acceptance and
yeah.
allowing it to go and being, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and what I say to couples, like when one
yeah, the
particular
couples work.
partner,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
when one particular partner is going to fix it mode, I ask that person, "Hey, last time you were feeling angry and someone told you to calm down,
Mm.
how did that go for you?"
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
that's the classic. Like, I don't like how you're feeling. I want to change your state right now. Calm down.
Yeah.
It's like, well, not very well. What did you need? Well, I just needed them just to be there and or give me some space just to
And not
feel it.
trying to change you or
Yeah,
change your
yeah,
feeling state, right?
yeah. I like that one because I feel like, generalizing here, everyone's been in that place where
Yeah.
you've been angry and someone's gone, hey, just relax or just chill out, stress less or something
Oh,
like
and
that. And
that one gets me. Anyone ever says that, I'm like, who the hell are you?
yeah, yeah. No, it doesn't
My
go down
pride
well.
kicks in.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Stress less, whatever. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, so true. Um, and I think that is the solution. And then what you're doing, as you said, you're acknowledging whatever way they show up is okay to me. I know who you really are, and it's not your feeling state at that particular time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's security. I find when you've got that in your partner, that's real security for me. And that's a really strong foundational bond, which can't be shaken by, feelings, feeling agitated or the other person being mad or angry, because, that's going to happen in a relationship, right?
definitely.
And the key point being is that, we're not our feelings, we're not our thoughts.
No,
We're
well,
something completely different to that. So once I
yeah,
think
yeah.
people recognize that, that allows them to be with, the ups and downs of a person's emotional state.
Yeah, and I go back to I think it was our first episode when you were telling the
Yeah.
story when I think it was the German facilitator.
Yeah,
What was it?
Gordon. Yeah.
99% of your thoughts are bullshit or
Well, and then if it is 99% of your, well, I would say your negative thinking, your thoughts are bullshit. I mean, I don't know if that's again scientifically validated or anything like that, but it does, it actually suits the critical thinker or trying to, work with that. Um, but and then obviously clearly if that's the case, well, think of the feeling states that the thinking's actually created. That's also probably true for that, right?
yeah,
So if that's the case, if someone's aware of that in themselves or another person, it allows them to be with whatever's going on, hopefully a little bit more easily, understanding it's not actually them at all and it's not actually true. Um,
you know,
but then you could probably move into a world where going, well, that's not true, that's your thinking and that's not 99% of that's not true. And then if you're thinking that at the moment, at that time, and you're angry, probably the last thing you want to hear, right?
yeah, that's right. I think we can overthink it, and at the end of the day, like my belief is, look, if that person isn't hurting anyone,
Mm.
then just allow them to feel their feelings.
Well, yeah, it's what we do in session with our clients, right? So, you
Mm.
know, um, try and be as non-judgmental as we can, and allow them to have the space to feel and to think in whichever way they want to, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what was coming up for me too, I know I started with word like ways that I like to express my anger. What I
Mm,
also realized was I wasn't having a voice when I was feeling anger as well, which was also manifesting in my body.
mm,
So because I would have a thought and a feeling or even
yep,
a truth, and I would sort of keep that to myself. It's like,
yep,
well, I better not talk about this because that will show that I'm not pure, or I'm feeling angry and I can't feel angry. So I was keeping a lot of things to myself.
mm.
So what I realized too was it was really important to have empowerment through my voice and to express myself.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like that makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm,
I err on that too, a little bit trying to process it myself rather than talk it through.
mm,
But, to talk it through, you need to have, a person in front of you who can listen
yeah,
and isn't going to judge you, right? So that opportunity isn't always available, clearly either. So, um, yeah, to have it in your partner or your wife is a really, um, great thing. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. An easy silence, Matt.
yeah,
We don't often have those. It's like it's a
yeah.
yeah,
Silence is great.
yeah.
Yeah. So what would you tell the viewers when they start to feel angry? What do they need?
I it's a little hard to prescribe it, um, because I think it really depends on who the person is and where they're at, in their, journey, if you like, for want of a better word. So it really just depends on the person and where they're at, Matt. I mean, that's how I would, like to think that I would treat it or work with a person. So, and it really would then depend on, well, what's coming up? What can I see? What's behind that? Um, Perhaps behind that comment, like uneasiness, moving, fidgeting. What am I, what am I working with? Who am I working with? And then that would lend itself to how I'm going to position, my interaction with the client moving forward. I know that's a bit general, but it's person centered, right? So that's always I mean, I think pretty much always the way that I would work with someone. But I have probably my own, probably like yourself, have my own kind of toolkit, and that will be unique to me, and what I then put forward, to a client in terms of helping them.
That's right. And I think, yeah, I really agree with you there because some clients, they might be very arty. So creating and painting might be a way of expression. Other people, yeah, it might be more of a physical thing where they need to go to the gym, or for others, it might be writing, journaling. Yeah, it might even be writing a letter to the anger part and asking it what
Mm,
it needs, potentially. Uh, and I suppose the way that I see anger too, I feel like anger is there for a reason. And
mm,
what I've noticed in my own experience is it usually alludes to our boundaries maybe being violated in some way. And when I say boundaries, it could mean our values have been potentially disrespected. So if we really lean into the anger and ask it, what it might be afraid of would happen if it wasn't here. It'd be interesting to see what comes up.
sorry, if you what was that last bit?
So if we ask the anger, what it's afraid of, would happen if it wasn't expressing itself, it would be interesting to see what is behind the anger, what it's afraid of.
Mm, yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting one. I always think behind anger, there's fear. Fear's the core kind of emotion behind the anger.
Yep.
So there's some sort of fear and um, yeah, I mean, it could be like pride. I mean, it could be like someone said that I'm wrong or something, or um, in terms of, why someone would get angry, or yeah, yeah, it's an interesting one. Um, I tend to think I find with anger personally that, as I said, it just takes a little while to process going through it, and it it does leave. Well, I mean, again, for some clients, it would be, it can stay clearly, and it can stay for quite a while, but generally runs out of energy
Yeah.
if you just stick with it. And then at some point, I had a client the other day. What was it? I think I can say on. I'll say it, yeah, because it's not giving away anything in terms of names or anything like that. But he
I think
has
you're
a.
right if you don't say names.
Yeah, I know. I was just careful. Like, so,
Yeah.
ABI, acquired brain injury, and having some difficulty with family, and took it out on his, yeah, his partner. And I just confronted him and just said, hey, look, what was it about? Because he told me very clearly it was about his family. And I said, well, did your partner do anything wrong? And he said, no. You know, I mean, it's a simplistic example. And I said, okay, so, but you were quite aggressive towards her? He said, yes. And I said, well, do you think you might owe an apology based on the fact that it was about your family and not about her? And he said, yes. So
Yeah.
we agreed that he was going to buy some, I think, sort of give a gift or something like that.
Well, that's beautiful.
It was a really nice one, actually. He's a sweet
Yeah.
guy, a really sweet guy,
Yeah.
underneath.
I really love what you did there. It's almost like you pivoted him back to his values.
Yeah, yeah, I guess I did. It was just,
Mm.
I think just taking when he said it, I mean, again, it's quite simplistic and it obviously does get more complex in a room than that, but when it's a little bit more layered and everything else. But it was just a nice, simple example of how you were able to kind of take it, redirect it, put it back
Yeah.
on him and go, oh, I did that. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, yeah, it was quite a sweet example. And he came in quite, oh, I'm not good, and
Yeah.
then he walked out and he had a big smile, he's laughing, and I think he was going to go and get his get the gift after the session or something. So that was a great way to diffuse anger. Again, very simplistically unpacking it and understanding, well, and then, we unpacked, to a degree the family situation. And again, we were able to see his part in it. Um, and the fact that he was perhaps making assumptions around not being included and all these sorts of things, yet
He might.
he wasn't actually taking any action to
Yeah.
contact
Yeah.
them. And again,
Yeah.
very simplistic, but very sweet in terms of how
Yeah.
you can see anger and what it can be derived with them. In this case, it was, obviously
Mm.
cognitive, distortions, and quite simply being able to recognize that and then
Yeah.
getting him to understand that, and maybe some tools that he could actually put in his toolkit to change, to
Mm.
become more empowered in terms of, rather than making all these assumptions without without making him feel wrong, or that he'd done it the wrong way, or it was quite nice.
And no, it's a great session. And I know I feel like anger can tell us, like where we care. If we really listen to the anger,
Mm.
I feel like it can direct us into actually what really matters. Because I feel like the anger wouldn't be there if we didn't care about something there.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this example, he cared about his family, and he was hurt because he thought they didn't include him
Yeah,
in their, conversations and key conversations. And probably, I imagine, I mean, we didn't kind of unpack it to the great degree because I'm not sure he would have been able to comprehend
yeah,
based on his injury. But, and that's not trying to be, um, um, derogatory at all towards him at all, but just kind of recognizing the developmental levels, um, to understand that, he was thinking, well, they're not including me. I'm hurt, and there would be some sort of core belief of, I'm not good enough or what have you.
losing that sense of belonging.
Yeah, and so if you actually look at that in terms of like the discussion we're having around anger, I think there's a lot to be said for that simplistic example that we've just walked through, right? Because I think we could all probably take a leaf out of that book because you ask, well, do you know what I mean? Like there's some sort of core belief that I'm a screw up or it kind of goes all the way down to that level,
Yeah.
right? When we unpack it.
And that's when the
Um,
fear comes in,
which of course isn't true, but in the moment that's how you react to it. And
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then
yeah,
that's how you, I guess, effectively resolve it by that unpacking and, or at least
yeah.
recognizing it. You've made some sort of distortion or,
Mm. So
um,
the anger is like a protective layer, almost protecting the fear or the core belief that's underneath that. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I think it is. I
Yeah,
think it would be some sort of, um, overlay where you haven't gone under, obviously, where the disempowering belief is. And it's almost to fight, protect that
yeah, yeah,
fighting it. No, it's not true. It's not true. But
yeah, yeah,
oh, the way to actually deal with it is to understand the mechanics of what's just happened, um, to unpack it and, even reverse it out, right? Like, is it really true? Are you a complete stuff up? Are you, useless or not loved? And, you can typically find, 90 examples of why you are loved or liked. I mean, not everyone can obviously do that depending on where they are in their journey. But as you go through the journey, you understand where those kind of distortions are more, yeah, just out of whack to who you are. It's just, you agree with that or yeah.
and that's what I love about this work. I just love unpacking it with clients, peeling back the layers to see where it originated. Is it, yeah, it makes sense that we feel like that because of, this, and this. Let's have a look at the evidence to see how true it actually is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, yeah, we can definitely see some glimmers.
Mm.
Yeah, but without someone safe there and someone who we trust to sort of unpack that, then we may not be able to
To
see that.
have that someone safe person to unpack it with.
Well, if we look at it this way, like, if we were feeling angry and we had a core belief and someone who really loves us doesn't want us to feel that anger and that pain, they might say, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. That's ridiculous." Like, that person isn't going to feel safe to express why they're feeling angry and where it might be coming from. But
No, of course not.
if that person's met with safety and understanding, like, we're probably going to be able to get a lot further.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess that's what we're trying to do as therapists, right?
Mm.
Create that safety in terms of an environment to share those things and um yeah, just to help the client, feel easier. Um Help them on the journey through that difficult, challenging emotion or thought and helping them to, maybe just start to see things in a different light. just changing the lens on it and allowing them to come to that conclusion, I guess, um, in terms of enabling positive change.
It's much more empowering, isn't it? When we're just there sort of guiding them along, not
Yeah.
telling them. And then I know about you, but it's one of my favorite things in my job is when I see they've had this like light bulb moment where it's like, ah, okay.
Yep.
And I just see like their whole body kind of shift. They'll go from being like this to on the couch to like that, and with a little kind of gentle smile on their face. It's like, it makes sense now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get
No,
it.
it's
Mm.
it's great to, it's like one of the great things about our job, isn't it? That we enable people to be easier about themselves, hopefully, and um, yeah, just to see things differently and to witness the change, when they've had those epiphanies or they've understood something for themselves and make that shift themselves, right? And hopefully, depending on again who they are and they're able to take that, into their life even when they finish therapy, obviously, and just continue that journey. That's what I love if people can do that, because there's always a long way to go. You finish with us, typically there's still a long way to go, in a great way, but in a very empowering way.
The thing it's been, our motto at Thrive is, to be the ripple effect so that those people can be the light to share it with others. And I think that's a really special moment uh, when we can share what we've learned in our own lived experience, be that light for others, and then they can share it with the people who they know. And I feel like, that's what this work is about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That reminds me of the 12th step, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, we freely gave away what we've received. I mean, obviously, we don't always do things for free, Matt, in our professional capacity, but
yeah.
um, we do it. We do it in our lives, right? And I know that you do, and I know I do. Outside of being in the therapist chair, it's you do freely give it away.
Yeah, I try to, but some days, I do turn into the fixer. But it's about noticing and coming back to the basics. But we're humans, and we're not always going to be perfect. And I think it's about having self-awareness and just noticing when we've gone off track, and yeah, coming back to the clear path.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I'm just checking in on time, Matt, and I think we're about done.
Yeah, I
About
think we're done.
around about the 30-minute level.
Yeah.
Um, Great to chat as always. Been a little while, not that long ago, but I'm really enjoying the chats. Obviously for the people out there, should you resonate with any of this, or someone who perhaps needs some help, someone to talk to, some professional neutral support, where you think they could benefit from, some of the things that myself and Matt have talked about today. I think, Matt, there'll be some contact numbers after the video or on the video at some point where people can get in contact with us.
So some support numbers, which
Yep,
will be on the screen as well if you need
perfect.
extra support.
All right, Matt.
Thanks, Dale.
Great topic. Thank you, as
Yeah.
always.
No, really enjoyed that one, as
All
always,
right.
as well. All right.
Take care.
You too. If you or someone that you know needs immediate support, please see on the screen a list of hotlines you can call. And to book in with a clinician at Thrive, you can phone the reception or book online. And remember, you're never alone.